Good day everyone. Today we will tackle the chapter 6, which is all about payroll accounting and other selected transactions. So sa chapter na ito malalaman natin kung paano ba ginagawa ang payroll sheet. Ipapakita dito ang mga computations para sa payroll liabilities and business taxes based on the Train Act. At ipapakita rin dito kung ano pa yung other selected transactions sa payroll accounting. In every businesses, meron silang kailangan sahuran, which is yung mga employees nila. So payroll represents compensation paid to employees and workers. O ito yung sahod na ibinabayad sa employee or workers ng isang kumpanya. So sa employee, nare-receive nila ang kanilang sahod monthly or quincenas, while yung mga workers naman, daily or per hour silang binabayaran. Payroll accounting involves maintaining records of its employees and workers where their personal data and work experience among others are noted. So, hindi lang natin ginagamit ang accounting sa pag-record ng mga business transaction. Pwede rin ito sa pagpapasahod ng mga employee natin. A payroll sheet is a tabular form prepared by the accounting department to determine take-home pay, employees, and workers. Take-home pay means ito yung net amount ng sahod mo, means nalas na dito yung mga taxes, benefit, and voluntary contributions. Payroll sheet, it consists of 5-column listings. First is employees or workers' name, gross pay representing compensation earned for a certain period of time, deduction for payroll liabilities, net pay or take-home pay, signature or employee or worker. Deductions from gross pay. The gross pay is not the actual amount to be received by an employee or worker. Itong gross pay, meaning yan is yan yung kabuuan ng sweldo ng isang employee. Hindi pa nade-deduct dyan yung mga payroll liabilities, which are income tax. Income tax is a government tax on the taxable profit earned by an individual or corporation. So yung mga nagbabayad lang nito ay yung mga kumikita ng 250,000 annually based sa Tax Reform for Acceleration and Inclusion or TRAIN Act. Next is SS Premium, required sa mga employee na maging member ng SSS, which is monthly nilang dapat bayaran. Ang benefit ng isang SSS member ay maaari kang makapag-loan katulad ng education loan, salary loan, disability benefit, maternity benefit, calamity loan, pension, and retirement pay. Kasama rin sa payroll liabilities ang health insurance, home development mutual fund or pag-ibig, membership due if employee is a member of a labor union or association. Payroll sheet illustrated. So, sa company ng Speedy Delivery Service ni John D. Matulak, yung mga hinari niyang employees is sila Danilo Cruz, which is yung position niya, driver or messenger. Then, yung gross salary niya is 12,400. Si Enrica Fajardo, which is delivery clerk, na ang gross pay niya is 14,600. Then si Stephanie Perez naman ay isang delivery manager. Then yung gross salary niya is 23,000 monthly. Yung payroll sheet na magagawa is applicable from July 1 to 15 dahil kinsenas at katapusan ang sahod ng mga employee. It means parehas lang ng magiging payroll sheet for the second half of July. Itong table na ito ay magsisilbing guide para makuha natin ang SSS contribution ng bawat employee. Sa slide na to, ito yung mga payroll deductions ng mga employee. At ang tanong dito, paano nga ba ito nakuha? First is yung SSS contribution ni Danilo Cruz. So, yung naging monthly salary credit ni Cruz is 12,500 dahil nag-range ang sahod niya na 12,400 dun sa table ng SSS contribution, which is 12,250 to 12,749.99, kaya nakuha yung 12,500. After makuha ang monthly salary credit, you need to multiply it to the SSS contribution rate, which is 12%. Kaya yung total SSS contribution is 12% times 12,500. So, 1,500. Yung share ng employer will be 8%, which is equivalent to 1,000. And yung share naman ng employee will be 4%, which is equivalent to 500. Dahil kinsenas at katapusan ang payroll period nila, it will be divided by 2. So, ang magiging SSS contribution ni Cruz semi-monthly will be 250 pesos. Ganyan rin ang mangyayari sa SSS contribution ni Erica Fajardo. While kay Stephanie Perez, since nag-range yung monthly salary niya sa 15,750 above, so yung babayaran niya is yung maximum contribution, which is 1,920. So 8% ulit sa employer and 4% naman manggagaling sa kanya as employee. Next is yung health contribution. According to PhilHealth, as of January 2018 onwards, yung magiging contribution nila will be 2.75% of their monthly basic salary. At ito yung contribution na to will be equally shared by the employer and employee. So maghahati si employee at employer. Makikita sa health contribution nila na minultiply yung monthly salary nila by 2.75% and divide by 2 dahil yung half contribution ay kay employer and the other half kay employee. So, divide ulit by 2 dahil half of month lang yung babayaran nila. So, yung kay Cruz, 85.25 pesos lang yung contribution niya para sa health contribution. So, yung kay Enrica Fajardo is 100.38. Kay Stephanie Perez naman is 158.13. So, yung pag-ibig monthly contribution is 2% of 5,000. So, 2% ulit sa employer and 2% naman sa employee. Since semi-monthly lang yung contribution nila sa pag-ibig, so yung magiging contribution ng employee is 50 pesos. And sa employer naman, pag monthly yung monthly share nila is 100 pesos. Taxable net income. To arrive at the taxable income, the above contributions should be deducted from gross salary. So yung gross salary na tinutukoy dito is yung kabuuan na dapat na susweldohin ng isang employee. Since meron silang mga payroll liabilities, kailangan ito i-deduct para makuha yung net taxable income. For example, kay Danilo Cruz, yung gross salary niya is 12,400 monthly yon. So, meron siyang kailangan bayaran na payroll liabilities o yung SSS, PhilHealth, pag-ibig. So, kailangan niya to i-less lahat para makuha net taxable income. So, 12,400 minus 770.50. So, yung total neto, ito na yung net taxable income or yung kabuuan na sasahurin ni Danilo Cruz. And ganun din mangyayari kina Erica Fajardo and Stephanie Perez. Tax liability. So, yung mga nagbabayad lang ng tax is yung mga employee na sumusweldo ng 250,000 above. It means, kapag malaki yung sahod mo, malaki rin yung tax na babayaran mo. So, sa case ni Danilo Cruz tsaka Enrica Fajardo is hindi lumagpas ng 250,000 yung sahod nila yearly. So, exempted sila sa pagbabayad ng tax. These tax-exempt minimum wage earners shall be exempt from the payment of income tax based on the statutory minimum wage rate, which is 512 pesos per day for NCR non-agriculture workers and 475 pesos for agriculture workers, retail or service businesses with 15 or less workers, manufacturing business with less than 10 workers. The regular practice is to use the withholding tax in determining employees' tax liability. These tables show compensation level either monthly, semi-monthly, or weekly basis depending on the payroll period. Since si Stephanie lang ang sumasahod ng mas mataas pa sa 250,000, so siya lang yung liable na magbayad ng tax sa kanilang tatlo. Using the table given, compensation level column 2 shows her taxable income is 110.98 pesos computed as follows. So, yung 10,971.875, ito yung ini-earn ni Stephanie semi-monthly. Minus yung compensation level which is 10,417 pesos. Dahil dito naka-under yung kinikita ni Stephanie semi-monthly equals to 554.875 times the prescribed minimum withholding tax which is 20%. So, ang total neto is 110.98 pesos. Ito yung taxable income niya. The payroll will be recorded twice on the 15th and 31st of July. So, yung analysis dito is gross pay represents services of employees debited to decrease owner's equity, credited to increase liabilities for the deduction made against gross pay, and credit to decrease assets in cash. So, yung second recording, same analysis as the first entry. So, dumagdag dito ng advances to employees. Advances is an asset representing service fee paid in advance, which is now credited to decrease assets as it is applied against the gross pay. So, itong journal entry na to, ito yung record ng first half and second half of July payroll. And ito yung itsura ng payroll sheet which is included yung names and position ng employee sa company, yung gross pay nila, yung payroll liabilities nila and the total deductions, net pay, and the signature. So, dito nakikita ng mga employee kung magkano napupunta sa mga contributions nila, kung bakit nagiging ganyan ang sinasahod nila.
Non-interest bearing note. A non-interest bearing note is a one which face value is the same as its maturity value. It means that the note is for 6,000. The amount to be paid on the date is also 6,000. A non-interest bearing note is a debt for which there is no documented requirement for the borrower to pay the lender any rate of interest. This is example of non-interest bearing note. The May 31, 2018 is the issue date or date the note. And 6,000 is the face value or principal amount to be paid. And next, June 30, 2018 is the maturity date or due date. Next, Mike Santos is the pay to whom payment is to be made. Susan Co, who signed it, is the maker or debtor who will pay on the due date. Next, the following are the transactions giving rise to promissory note. Number 1, service rendered or received. Number 2, asset acquired or sold. Number 3, accounts due but debtor cannot pay. Number 4, money borrowed or rent. Transaction number 1. Mike Santos owns a medical clinic on May 31. He received a 30-day note for 6,000 from Susan Co. Honors or Zoe Dals for medical service given to her employee. Tumaas ang asset at tumaas din ang owner's equity. May 31, notes receivable, the debit is 6,000. Medical income, the credit is 6,000. Receive a note for service rendered. Bumaba ang honest equity at tumaas yung liabilities. May 31, medical expense. The debit is 6,000. Not payable. The credit is 6,000. Issue is note for medical service or employee. Second transaction. Mike Santos tendered medical service to co-employees on account 6,000 on May 16. After 15 days, co-issue a note for the account. Bumaba yung asset at bumaba din yung honest equity. May 16. Accounts receivable, the debit is 6,000. Medical income, the credit is 6,000. Rendered service on account. Tumaas ang asset notes receivable and bumaba yung asset accounts receivable. May 31. Notes receivable, the debit is 6,000. Accounts receivable, the credit is 6,000. Receive a note for the account due. Tumaas ang honest equity due to the expenses and tumaas din yung liabilities. May 16. Medical expense. The debit is 6,000. The credit is accounts payable 6,000. Receive medical service on account. Change in the form of liabilities. May 31. The debit is accounts payable. The credit is notes payable. I will add for the accounts transaction. Ito yung accounts due but debtor cannot pay. Mike Santos, Ren Susan ko 6,000 cash on May 31. Susan issue a 30-day note for this. Tumaas ang asset notes receivable and bumaba yung asset cash. The debit is notes receivable. The credit is cash on hand. Note received for loan extended to co. Tumaas yung asset cash at tumaas din yung liabilities. May 31. Debit is cash on hand 6,000. The credit is notes payable 6,000. Issue is note to Santos for cash loan received. Number 4. Ito yung money borrowed or rent. Susan ko paid on maturity date by issuing a check. Tumaas ang asset cash at bumaba yung asset notes receivable. There is only a change in form of asset. The debit is cash on hand, 6,000. The credit is notes payable. Collected the note due from co. Bumaba yung liabilities at bumaba din yung asset. June 30, notes payable debit is 6,000. Cash in abandon, the credit is 6,000. Paid Santos for the note that was due. Interest-bearing note. An interest-bearing note is one where the maturity value amount to be paid on the due date is higher than its face value or principal. The amount stated is the promissory note because of the interest charge. The interest-bearing note represents funds loaned by a lender to a borrower on which interest is accrued in accordance with the terms of the agreement. These notes have many applicants. This is example of interest-bearing note. Next. The accounting for an interest-bearing note differs from a non-interest-bearing note only on maturity date since payment is higher than the face of the note because of the interest. The interest and maturity value are computed as follow. Ito yung mga computation ng interest at maturity value. Interest is equal to Principal times interest rate times time. The principal is 5,000. The interest rate is 18%. Time is 30 divide 360. 5,000 times 18,000 times 30 divide 360 is equal 75. This is computation of maturity value. Maturity value is equal principal plus interest. The principal is 5,000 and the interest is 75. 5,000 plus 75 is equal 5,075. This is entries on maturity date. Tumaas yung asset cash, bumaba yung asset notes, receivable, and tumaas din yung owner's equity for the interest income. June 30, cash on hand, the debit is 5,075, notes receivable, the credit is 5,000. In interest income, the credit is 75. Collected note plus interest. Bumaba yung liabilities, bumaba din yung owner's equity, at bumaba din yung asset cash. June 30, notes payable, the debit is 5,000. Interest expense, the debit 75. Cash on hand, the credit is 5,075. Paid for note. Determining the due date. A promissory note has a term of or period or time within which a debtor is required to pay subtract the issue date from the total number of days of said issue month to get the remaining number of days from this at the number of days or succeeding month until you arrive at the due date or maturity date. The due date means the date on which the amount becomes payable. Maturity dates. Always calculate the maturity date after taking into consideration 3 days. This example of determining the due date. The note is for a period 60 days. Date November 2. Number of days for November 30. Less issue date 2. Remaining days for November 28. Number of days for December 31. Number of days needed in January 1 to make it total of 60. The due date is January 1. Borrowing from a bank or financial company. To supplement the business resource, the business may borrow cash from the bank of other financial institution. The borrower as well issue an interest-bearing note. In other words, loan. A loan is when money is given to another party in exchange for a repayment of the loan principal amount plus interest. And other meaning of loan is a loan may be secured by collateral such as a mortgage, or it may be insecure such a credit card. This is illustrate of borrowing from a bank or financial company. May 31, John Demalanta, owner, manager of Speedy Delivery Service, borrowed 50,000 for business use from Manila Bank and issue a 60-day 18% promissory note. July 30, John Demalanta issue a check to Manila Bank in payment of the note. This transaction of borrowing from a bank for a financial company. This transaction of Mr. John Demalanta tumaas yung asset cash niya at tumaas din yung liabilities. May 31, the debit is cash on hand. The amount of debit is 50,000. The debit is not payable. The amount of credit is 50,000. Borrow with cash and issue a notes to Manila Bank. Bumaba yung liabilities niya, bumaba din yung owner's equity, interest expense, at bumaba din yung asset cash. The debit is not payable. The amount of debit is 50,000. The interest expense, the debit is 1,500. The credit is cash is bank. The amount of credit is 51,500 paid for note with interest. Nagkaroon siya ng interest. Dahil nanghiram siya ng pera sa bangko. Ito yung computation ng borrowing from a bank of financial company. Face value represent notes payable is 50,000. Interest 50,000 times 18% times 60 and 360. The interest is 1,500. Maturity value represent cash paid. Yung kabuuan niyang binayaran is 51,500. After issue date, count for 60 days, 30 days for June, and 30 days for July. Due date is July 30. Sa July 30 siya magbabayad. Discounting note. Most often, when cash is borrowed from banks or financial companies, the note is discounted, which means that interest is immediately deducted, so that the cash received is lower than the face of the note. On maturity date, the borrower pays at face value. The other meaning of discount the note. A discount on notes payable occurs when the note its value is greater than its carrying value. This transaction of discounting note. May 31, the note issued by Manalo in the above illustration was discounting by the bank at 18% for 60 days. Tumaas yung asset cash, tumaas din yung liabilities, notes, payables, and tumaas din yung owner's equity para sa interest. May 31, the debit is cash on hand. The amount of debit is 4%, 500. The debit is interest expense. The amount of debit is 1,500. The credit is not payable. The amount of credit is 50,000. Discounted note with the Manila Bank. Next is bumaba yung liabilities at yung assets. July 30. Notes payable. The amount of debit is 50,000. The credit is cash in bank. The amount of credit is 50,000. Paid for note. This is computation of discounting note. Face value present notes payable. This is 50,000. Interest 50,000 times 18% times 60 divide 360. The interest is 1,500. And cash proceed is equal 48,500 pesos. The face value and interest is pag minus lang 50,000 is equal 1,500 is equal 48,500 pesos. This analysis of transaction. for discounting note. Tumaas ang asset due to the note and bumaba yung asset cost. With the difference, magkaiba silang pagkataas. At tumaas din yung owner's equity. May 31. The debit is not receivable. The amount of the debit is 50,000. And the credit is cash. The amount of credit is 48,500. And the interest income is 1,500. Not discounted at 80%. Tumaas yung asset at bumaba yung asset not receivable. The debit is cash. The amount of debit is 50,000. The credit is not receivable. The credit is 50,000. Corrected note. Naka-discount siya ng 18%. At ang mabayaran na lang niya ay 48,500.
Investments of owner. The owner investments may be in the form of a cash, property, or an already existing business. Ang investments owner o yung mga ini-invest, pwede siyang in form of a cash o property, lupa, o nag-exist na business, parang na ganun. Market value represents the amount for which the asset could be sold or bought in the present condition. Market value, siya yung halaga ng isang bagay sa panahon ngayon. Example, yung isang lupa o yung isang sasakyan, ganun. Nagamit mo na siya ng 5 taon, tapos titignan kung magkano yung presyo niya ngayong sa after 5 years. Ayun yung magiging market value niya. Exchange price or cost concept states that the acquired asset should be recorded at the actual price established on acquisition date, which is measured in cash or its equivalent amount. Acquisition date from the viewpoint of the business is the date when the land was invested. Investment in property with an attached liability. If the owner will invest a piece of property with an attached liability to be assumed by the business, the liability will be recognized in the books of the business, and the capital account will be credited as at the net amount. Investment of an already existing business. The rule is practically this same. If the owner buys an already existing business, the assets and liabilities must also be recorded at the current value of the old business. Yung investment in property with an attached liability. Example, nag-invest ka sa lupa, nag-invest ka doon. Tapos meron pang utang 'yon, parang ibabawas na 'yun doon sa market, yung market value niya, ibabawas na yung utang niya mismo. Parang drawings of owners. Acquisition cost of properties. Acquired property, plant, and equipment should be recorded and its cost. The price established in exchange transaction and based on the cost or exchange price principle. Incidental expenses incurred in transporting the asset to the place of the buyer, such as taxes, import duties, storage, insurance, while in transits and freight. This cost from part of the asset cost as the acquisition of the assets cost, and as the acquisition of the asset would not be possible without these incidental expenses. These cash outlays are called capital expenditures. Yung capital expenditures, these are the money spent by a business or organization on acquiring or maintaining fixed assets such as lands, buildings, and equipment. Ang Tagalog ng capital expenditure, yun yung paggasta ng kapital. Additional expenditures needed to set up and test the property to make it ready for use are also capitalized, such as installation cost expenses for the test the property to make it ready for use are also capitalized, such as installation expenses for the test runs, salary of hard expert if needed. Ito yung mga ginagastos nila para masubukan muna yung property. Ito yung mga installation, mga expert, mga titingin kung pasok ba sa standard o pasok ba sa qualification yung isang property. Returns and allowance are deducted from the purchase price of the acquired property. A rebate is a discount granted for paying an account promptly, while an allowance is a reduction in the price given to the buyer to cover up defects or spoilage on the asset purchased without returning the assets. Yung rebate is a partial refund to someone who has paid too much money for tax, rent, or a utility. Kumbaga, imbis na isoli mo mismo yung asset, parang may refund lang, may babayaran lang or may makukuha, ganun. Return of assets purchase. An asset may be returned to the supplier if the asset is defective or do not conform to order made. Yun nga, kung sa rebate parang may may bayad lang, may discount, parang ganun. Dun sa return of asset purchase, isosoli mo siya mismo. What will be the effect? Value of the asset will decrease. Cash will increase if there is a refund. Liability will decrease if the asset was purchased on credit. Sale of assets. If the assets like machine or equipment become obsolete or inadequate to meet the demands of an expanding business, this may be sold and replaced with a new at better model. Obsolescence occurs when a better model is invented or produced than what is originally acquired. Inadequacy result when the asset can no longer meet the demands of the business, like when the production capacity of the machine is only 5,000 units, whereas the sales volume needed by the business is 100,000. Business taxes, permit, and registration fees. Before one can operate a business, certain legal requirements must be complied with, as registering the business name with the Department of Trade and Industry, registering the business with the Bureau of Internal Revenue, getting a mayor's permit to operate within certain locality. All of this will require a debit to taxes, license and permits, expense and a credit to cash. Bago mag-umpisa yung business, alam naman natin lahat na kailangan ng mga permit, kailangan ng mga permit para mag-operate yung isang business. Kumbaga para maging legal ito sa sa community. Percentage tax. Business are subject to a 3% percentage tax based on annual gross sales of receipts on sales of goods, service, and properties, provided that the amount does not hit the 3,000 threshold as provided in the Train Act. This is payable quarterly to the BIR within 25 days from the close of the last quarter. Businesses with the annual gross receipts sales not exceeding 250,000 pesos are considered livelihood activities and are, ex- and are exempt from paying the percentage tax. Business with gross receipt not exceeding 100,000 pesos are considered livelihood activities and are exempt from paying the percentage tax. To illustrate, assume that the Arrow delivery service with annual gross receipts of 2 million pesos reported on June 30 quarterly gross receipt of 800,000 pesos, a 3% percentage tax in cash on July 18 entry for payment of tax is. Yung percentage tax, inaalam dito kung magkano yung parang magkano yung kinikita ng isang business. Tapos dun iaano yung ilang percent o kung gaano kalaki yung maikakaltas na tax sa bawat business. Kumbaga hindi siya pare-parehas sa mga ibang business na malalaki. Value added tax. If the annual sales of services, goods or properties hits the 3 million pesos threshold, the business is subject to a 12% value added tax or VAT instead of a percentage tax. Yun nga, parang may mga limit kung magkano yung ibabayad yung tax.
Employer's contribution. The law also requires the employer to make corresponding contribution for SS, PhilHealth, HDMF, or Pag-ibig and EC premiums. The EC or Employees Composition Insurance, which is paid only by the employer, is a requirement contribution mandated by law which entitles employees to additional benefits with regard work-connected sickness or injury resulting disability or death of an employee. So, employer's contribution is really important lalo na sa mga employees na yung work is malapit sa kapahamakan like construction worker. Alam naman natin na napakadelikadong work na yun. So, with the help of those mentioned in the PowerPoint and with the help of those contribution, it will make those employee feel at ease if ever na may mangyari sa kanilang masama kasi nga cover sila ng benefits na na-mention. And sinabi nga rin na it is required or mandated by law to have employers contribution for the benefit of her employees. At sinabi rin na yung mismong employer yung magko-contribute sa mga PhilHealth at Pag-ibig tsaka iba pa. So, a schedule of total monthly employers contribution. So, for a better illustration, the table represents the employer's monthly contribution. So, for Mr. Cruz, for his contribution for the Social Security is 1,000 and for the PhilHealth contribution is 170 and 50 centavos for the AC contribution with 10 pesos and for the HDMF or known as Pag-ibig with 100 pesos for those employee who earn less than 1,500 monthly contribute 1% anyong sa mga employers naman katulad ng tatlong pangalan na nasa table contribute 2% ng kanilang basic salary with a total 1,280 and 50 centavos with a total contribution ng mga employers sa apat na contributor. But take note na yung contribution na yun is not fixed except sa EC which is fixed talaga na 10 pesos monthly. The rest it depends sa basic salary ng employers. Based on this, an added entry will be prepared but only at the end of the month. So we put it an entry form for us to determine if nag-increase ba or nag-decrease ba yung contribution ng owner. So as what we can see, in the end of the month of July, the SS premium expense and HIP premium expense, AC premium expense and HDMF premium expense decrease in owner's equity contribution expense of the business, while the SS premium payable and HIP premium payable, AC premium payable and the HDMF premium payable increase in liabilities. So third slide, assume remittance were made on August 10 for tax, SS, PhilHealth and Pag-ibig. In this entry, started in August 10, the remittance were made Then the withholding tax payable debit 110 and 98 centavos cash in bank credit, and 110 and 98 centavos paid withholding tax to BIR. SS premium payable debit 5,740 pesos, EC premium payable debit 50 pesos cash in bank credit with a total of 579 pesos paid to SSS contribution. PhilHealth premium payable debit 1,375 pesos, credit cash in bank 1,375 pesos paid to PhilHealth premiums. HDMF premiums payable debit 600 pesos cash in bank, 600 pesos paid to Pag-ibig. In these entries, the liabilities and assets decreases. This table naman shows the different contribution of the employer and employee. Yung pagkakaiba ng contribution nila, as what I said earlier, na it depends sa basic salary ng employee at employer. And the SS contribution, the employer's contribution is 1,000 pesos and the employee's contribution is 500 pesos. Take note na yung employer dapat mas malaking contributor. So this is the basis of recording on August 10. This table naman shows yung recording ng entries nung August 10 nung nag-remittance. Fifth slide naman, internal control for payroll. It is important that internal control procedure be set up with regard payroll accounting. Internal control is a procedure intended to protect the assets of the business and to ensure compliance not only with company policies but also contracts and government regulation. Internal control for payroll is one of the trusted form of procedure kasi yung taong makaka-access dito is limited lang, and then yun nga, it is one of the confidential identity ng isang company or ng organization, as what I mentioned earlier, na it protects the assets of business. Also, makaka-sure na yung regulation mandated sa law is nasusunod ng maayos. It makes every transaction transparent sa lahat ng business unit ng needing them. Some of the internal control procedure being implemented by business entities for payroll. So number 1, a record is maintained by human resource department for each employee or worker. So internal control updated those information for the future purpose, katulad ng promotion and evaluation na din. Number 2, time in and out is better controlled by means of computerized timekeeping machine using either employee stamp, mark, or identification card. It is one of the important security it is one of the important security that those business is needed, kasi katulad ngayon, technology is really scary dahil na rin sa pangmalawakang kakayahan neto, pero having tight security in business is really needed. For example, a lot of company uses biometrics of their employees to enter a certain floor or part of the restricted area of the company, or also for the entrance of the company then. So number 3, the payroll sheet is also control device which is reviewed by an authorized personnel and signed as approved by the finance officer before payment can be made. So this payroll sheet is the proof that you receive or get your payroll with the consent of the finance officer na natanggap mo na yon, and also it is recorded. On number 4, payment shall be made by check rather than cash, or shall be withdrawn through the ATM machine. So it is better to use check or withdrawn in ATM machine because it can control or monitor your cash flow. So sa 6th slide naman, cash on hand and in bank. Businesses actually keep most of their money in a bank account. The bank account may be a current account or a savings account because it will earn interest and have the full protection that keeping it at yourself than keeping it at yourself. So a current account is used by a business when it pays using bank check. Most companies use their Empress system, which is an internal control procedure for cash transaction. So it will help those easily manage yung mga large payments na ginagawa ng isang company. So sa savings accounts, it it is where a business deposits all extra cash which earn interest. So it also has the potential to earn interest over time. The business then uses three accounts titles: cash in bank's current and cash in bank savings for the deposit in bank and cash on hand for money in the hands of the company officers. And so usually the treasurer keeps the cash in the vault or safe deposit box within the company premises. Cash is not always in form of paper, money, and coins. Negotiable instruments like a bank check, government treasury warrant, and the postal money order are accepted also as medium of exchange and considered as a cash. So, so, so 7th slide, to illustrate, assume that June 1 for service rendered, the firm received 50,000 cash and a check for 100,000. Debit cash on hand 150,000 pesos. Credit service income 150,000 pesos. Received cash for service rendered. The asset cash on hand and owner equity increases. So June 2, open a current account with PNB and deposit the check received. On date June 2, debit cash in bank 100,000 pesos, credit cash on hand 100 pesos. Then the cash deposit had been made increase in asset, cash in hand and decrease in asset, cash on hand. July 1, issue a check for 15,000 in payment of an account. Debit accounts payable 15 pesos, credit cash in bank 15 pesos, payment of account. The liability and asset cash in hand decreases. July 15, paid the salary of the secretary 5,000 in cash. Debit salary expense 5,000 pesos, credit cash on hand 50 pesos. Payment for the salary, the owner's equity, and the asset cash on hand both decreases. Promissory note. A promissory note is a written promise made by the maker or debtor promising to pay the pay or creditor a sum certain in money due at fixed or determinable future time. A promissory note has some advantages over an open account. Most those who are carried in large scale operations, sila yung kadalasan nakaka-handle ng credit. The transaction can either an open account or a written promise, which we call a promissory note. Pwede din itong maging evidence against sa mga debtor kapag nag-fail silang makabayad. Pwede din itong maging interest bearing or non-interest bearing. Non-interest bearing note. A non-interest bearing note is one which face value is the same as its maturity value. Yung non-interest bearing is kung magkano yung halaga ng inutang sa'yo ng utang, yun din yung babayaran niya. So the following are the transaction giving rise to promissory notes. Number 1, receipts rendered or received. Number 2, assets acquired or sold. Number 3, accounts due but debtor cannot pay. Number 4, money borrowed or lent. Sa 9th slide, an example of the non-interest bearing note which contains 5 important information. Number 1, May 31, 2018 is the issue date or the date that that the note was drawn and issued by maker. Number 2, 16,000 is the face value or principal amount to be paid. Number 3, June 30, 2018 is the maturity date or due date. Number 4, Mike Santos is the pay to whom payment to be made. Number 5, Susan Koo who signs it is the maker or debtor who will pay on the due date. So, yun lang po. Maraming salamat po sa pakikinig.